Okay, so emerging adulthood is that life stage that Jeffrey Arnett described as typically occurring between 18 to 29. And it's that time between adolescence and full adulthood. The stage is characterized by things like exploration, instability, and possibility. And his work was based on extensive interviews with over 300 adults. So, over the past 50 years, there's been so many social and economic changes that have transformed the typical life trajectory of young people in industrialized countries. So, some of the key shifts include that the median age of the first marriage has risen from early 20s to late 20s, early 30s. Participation in higher ed has more than doubled. People are delaying parenthood or, in some cases, rethinking it altogether. Career paths have become less linear and predictable. And I think that these demographic changes really created space for a new developmental period that didn't exist before, which is what Arnett has recognized and named. So again, it's this developmental period between ages 18 to 25 or 29, sort of depending on what you read. And it really serves as that bridge between dependence of adolescence and the full responsibilities of adulthood. So during this time, young adults are gaining psychological independence from parents and childhood structures, but they haven't yet made full commitments to adult roles and responsibilities. And it's that critical time for exploring possible selves, developing worldviews, and experimenting with different life paths. So, before making more enduring commitments, like areas like work, relationships, and other things of that nature, there's the possibility of trying things on. So, the research interviews conducted by Arnett revealed a striking pattern, and most respondents, ages 18 to 25, felt they were in between, quote unquote, adulthood and adolescence, answering yes or no, or in some ways yes, in some ways no, when asked if they felt like adults. So, this subjective feeling in between was consistent across demographics, suggesting something more profound than just delayed milestones was occurring in this age group. And as Arnett notes, to be a young American today is to experience both excitement and uncertainty, wide open possibility and confusion, new freedoms and new fears. So, this in between phenomenon points to the need to consider a new developmental stage between adolescence and adulthood. So, thus, emerging adulthood is a distinct developmental stage between adolescence and full adulthood. And it's characterized by things like that semi autonomous living, again, trying on multiple identities, partial financial independence, a mix of education and work, and increasing self governance. And this contrasts with adolescence, where individuals typically live with parents, have an identity tied to the peer groups, and are financially dependent with limited autonomy. It also differs from full adulthood, where individuals have an independent household, stable identity commitments, financial self sufficiency, career establishment, and long term commitments. So, understanding the unique features of emerging adulthood is important for supporting individuals during this transition period. Just closing my window, sorry. So, there are sort of five key psychological features: identity exploration, which is a time of trying out different possibilities and exploring one's identity and love, work, and worldviews. Instability, which is the period marked by frequent changes and transitions in relationships, education, and employment. Self focused, which is when emerging adults tend to be more self absorbed and focused on their own needs, desires, and development. That feeling in between, when emerging adults often feel that they have left adolescence but have not yet fully reached adulthood. And possibility is a time of great optimism and openness to different life paths, um, and opportunities. So during emerging adulthood, young people engage in very serious exploration of their identities in sort of those three key areas: work, love, and worldviews. In the work domain, they often try out different jobs and career paths to discover their talents and interests. In the love domain, they may explore romantic relationships with increasing depth and seriousness. In that worldviews domain, they may examine and reconsider their religious, political, and ethical beliefs. So, this identity exploration is more experiential compared to adolescence, and emerging adults actively participate in various roles. So, the goal of this identity exploration is to reach decisions that will provide the foundation for their adult life structure. So, on average, young adults move homes 4 times and have 7 different jobs during this period. 60%, and this number may even be higher now, but also move back in with their parents at least once during this transitional time. And while this instability can be challenging, it also allows for important self exploration and learning before making permanent life commitments. So each change represents an opportunity for growth and recalibration as young people discover more about themselves and their preferences. And the key is to reframe this instability not as failure, but as a natural part of the journey toward adulthood. The self-focused age during emergent adulthood is not about being selfish or narcissistic. It's really about developing autonomy and independence by making decisions without parental oversight or the constraints of committed relationships. So it's also a time to build important life skills and capabilities for self-sufficiency, from everyday tasks to career advancement. And it's often a period of self-reflection where they're considering personal values, strengths, and desires before committing to long term adult roles. So the self focus is temporary and purposeful, and it lays that groundwork for the more informed and sustainable commitments to others later in life. The transition to adulthood is not a clear cut process, but rather, again, a feeling of being in between two life stages. So, when asked about what defines adulthood, emerging adults highlighted criteria like accepting responsibility, making independent decisions, and financial independence. However, most have only achieved some of these criteria, leading to a subjective sense of being caught again between adolescence and full adulthood. So, the in between feeling is that common experience for many young people navigating the path to independence and maturity. And understanding that perspective can help us better support emerging adults as they navigate this complex developmental period. So, emerging adulthood is a unique phase that's characterized by this unprecedented optimism about the future. Like during this time, many paths seem possible and open, and dreams are not yet tempered by practical realities. So, transformative experiences can redirect life trajectories, and even difficult backgrounds can be overcome by personal agency, and emerging adults feel their lives stretch before them like an unwritten story, and they're eager to begin writing it in a way that's both satisfying and successful. So, this sense of possibility and potential for transformation is a key feature of this developmental stage. Over the past 60 years, we've seen significant developmental shifts in the US. And as I mentioned before, like if you look at like marriage, for example, in the 1960s, the median age at first marriage was 21 for women and 23 for men, with only 30% of young adults attending college. And first children typically born before age 23. And by the 1980s, the median age at first marriage had risen to 23 for women and 25 for men, with about 45% of young adults attending college and first children born around age 26. In the 2000s, the median age at first marriage had increased further to 26 for women and 28 for men, with about 60% of young adults attending college, with first children born around age 28. And in the 2020s, the median age at first marriage is now 28 for women and 30 for men, with 70% of young adults attending some form of higher ed and first children typically being born around 30. So I do want to acknowledge that things are experienced differently across various cultural and socioeconomic contexts. So, in Western industrialized societies, the most pronounced features are exploration and delayed commitments. Um, in developing countries, urban and educated youth are showing increasing patterns of emerging adulthoods. In traditional societies, there's a more limited expression of emerging adulthood with earlier transitions to adult roles. So, I'm trying to outline on this slide some of the key critiques of emerging adulthood concept, which includes that it requires economic resources to sustain exploration, that it may pathologize different cultural approaches, and it's not equally applicable across social classes, and that it also emphasizes Western values of self-determination. So, neuroscience evidence shows the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for planning and decision making, that continues developing well into the 20s, which supports the emerging adulthood as a distinct stage. Cross-cultural studies from Europe, Australia, and Japan, and developing urban centers have confirmed many of the observations about emerging adulthood, though with some cultural variations. So, this phenomenon does appear consistently in societies with extended education. Longitudinal research following individuals from adolescence through their 30s reveals the distinct developmental patterns during the emerging adult years with greater instability and exploration compared to before or after this period. And research and data provides a strong scientific basis for understanding emerging adulthood as a unique stage between adolescence and fuller adulthood. So, the key practical implications of understanding emerging adulthood include tailoring support services in higher ed, developing onboarding and mentoring programs, I think, in the workplace, creating mental health interventions specific to the unique challenges of this life stage. And emerging adulthood also has significant implications for family relationships, as parents and emerging adults must negotiate new boundaries, expectations, and forms of support. And understanding this developmental period can help reduce family conflict and promote healthy interdependence. Um, I think that the theory of emerging adulthood fills an important gap in developmental psychology, recognizing these unique characteristics of that 18 to 25 age group, and it helps provide a framework to young people to understand their experiences as normal and a normal part of development rather than a failure to achieve full adulthood. So I think this understanding can help guide, again, the development of policies and programs that address the specific needs of emerging adults, and recognizing that emerging adulthood also acknowledges the changing nature of the life course in modern society, um, as well as, is providing us that impetus for determining that we do need new social structures to support the transition. Um, So I just want to also acknowledge that emerging adulthood, with this distinct developmental period, it's evolved alongside changing social and economic conditions. So today's emerging adults are digital natives navigating identity exploration both online and offline. Economic uncertainty has extended the instability and uncertainty that characterizes this period of life. Increased global mobility has created new forms of cultural identity development for emerging adults. The COVID-19 pandemic has further disrupted the traditional pathways and transitions of emerging adulthood. And I think that scholars are building on Arnott's foundational work to kind of make sense of some of these new patterns that are emerging. So, as mental health professionals, I think it's crucial to understand the characteristics of this population and to provide effective and appropriate support. Periods of instability, frequent changes, and ongoing identity exploration are normative during this stage, and we can help clients understand that this is part of the process. Emerging adults often face unique issues like anxiety, depression, adjustment disorders, or substance use stemming from the pressures of independence and new social roles. And I think our role is to tailor interventions to address these common challenges. We want to support identity development by facilitating self reflection, goal setting, and exploration of values and beliefs. So I think some of the common presenting issues include anxiety and stress stemming from academic pressure, career uncertainty, social anxieties, and increased independence, depression and mood dysregulation related to feelings of isolation or difficulty adjusting to new environments and the weight of adult responsibilities, relationship challenges in navigating complex romantic relationships, evolving family dynamics, and establishing new peer connections, and substance use, which can sometimes develop as a coping mechanism for stresses and pressures of this period.